to the Ask Me How I Know show. I'm your host, Julie Hulley, and I'm so excited you're here. Ask Me How I Know is the only podcast in the multifamily niche replicating what takes place outside the walls of a seminar. Remember when we used to get together like that? This is like the lobby where honest, unscripted conversations take place and transformation happens. We'll talk about practical problem solving in the multifamily niche as well as overcoming mental roadblocks. This episode is brought to you by 3 Keys Investments. 3 Keys Investments is dedicated to helping people like you, you, enter the multifamily investment space to build passive income and legacy wealth. If you haven't already subscribed and reviewed Ask Me How I Know, I'd be honored if you did. Thanks so much for joining me today, and now for our featured guest. Hey guys, welcome back to Ask Me How I Know. I have yet another amazing guest. I'm so blessed. I feel like, we believe in abundance, but every week I have these amazing guests. And today, none other than someone who I've listened to so many times, the Big Kahuna himself. Thanks so much for coming on Ask Me How I Know.
Thanks, Julie. Thanks for having me on. I'm so excited to be here.
Oh my gosh. I was just like, oh my gosh, the Big Kahuna is going to come. I'm so excited. And I just have to tell the listeners now, if you're watching on YouTube, which I don't promote, extensively, but you can see I have a copy of Copy Your Way to Success. This has been a fantastic book. I'm going to give it a pre-review real fast before we start and tell everyone, go get your copy of Copy Your Way to Success because one, it's so entertaining, Corey. You were right. Sometimes you pick up a book like this and, it's kind of like, okay, I'm going back to school or maybe
is it going to be really boring, right?
Yeah. But no, your book, it's hilarious and your stories just absolutely have cracked me up.
It is really, one of my favorite stories is when I was a cabana boy at the Stardust Hotel and Casino. And that's one of my favorite segments. It was so fun writing that just because, and it's all true. All that stuff really happened. And it really is just interesting to think. And when I go back and think about my life and the journey that I've went on, and everything kind of led to the next thing. And that's kind of how it works sometimes. And it's just been an amazing ride and journey. And that's what I've really learned to fall in love with, Julie, is that understanding that real estate is truly a journey and it never stops.
So basically, it's like when you're traveling to Hawaii and you're at the airport and you're on the little conveyor, the human people mover, and it's like you just follow along on the journey. It'll pay off.
It is, and that's really, I talk about that in the book as well. Just like the real point where it changed, where like you go through life and you learn, and then something like sometimes there's some forks in the road that really are the big moments in your life that radically change your direction. And for me, that was when I went to Hawaii, and can I share that story real quick? Is that all right?
Yes, I would love for you to share that story.
So this is like almost 20 years ago. Really, my mom was married to this guy named Bruce. I like to call him Bruce Wayne. Okay. He wasn't Batman, but Bruce was loaded. He had lots of money. And my mom was real pretty. Don't judge my mom. Okay. But so my mom invites me and my girlfriend, now my wife of 18 years.
Congratulations.
Thank you. To Hawaii. Of course, I was like, are you paying? Because I can't afford that. But they said yes. And so we got there and we didn't realize that Bruce had a house right on the beach. And this is Kauai. And if you've ever been to Hawaii, Kauai is the garden island. It is the most tropical, I just think it is my favorite island. Maybe it's because the first one I ever saw, but if I was to imagine paradise, that fits the bill. And so I get there and I remember, when you come from the mainland to Hawaii, you're like 3 or 4 time zones different. And so if you were not a morning person, you will be when you get there.
Right.
Okay. So me and my wife, her girlfriend, woke up early and we started to, and Bruce's house was, when I say on the beach, you went out the backyard over the berm and you're in the water kind of thing, and sand and toes in water. So, and it was on a cove. So we walked the cove And it's on the east side of the island, so we could actually watch the sunrise. We watched the sunrise, and I like to say it was that moment. Shelly and I were hand in hand. We're watching this magical sunrise. And I mean, it was amazing. It was like the stress of work and life and everything was just kind of shedding like a new birth. And when it was all done and we're collected and we're just looking at each other, I then look over and I see Bruce's house in kind of the distance. And I started asking myself some questions like, what does this guy do? Because Bruce had true wealth. When I'm talking about time and money. See, a lot of us have one, but not everybody has both. And he was different. There was no doubt in my mind, this guy was different. And so I had to ask him, what do you do? And then he said the magic words. He said that he was in real estate and that he owned apartments. And so I left the island thinking that Bruce was the big kahuna. And so, and then about 6 months later, I read that book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And I was like, oh my God, this is exactly what Bruce is. And it was right there that I decided that that's what I wanted to do and that's what I wanted to be. And then in 2005, I was ready to make the leap of faith and start my business. And I was like, what's the name? What should I name my company? And I went back to Bruce in my mind. I was like, Bruce was the big kahuna. I want to be the big kahuna. And so I named it Kahuna Investments. And I would have never have thought that it'd been as sticky as it is because everybody calls me the big kahuna.
Yep. You're like, I do have a name. It is Corey, but
Yeah.
But if you're like me, I'm like, I'll respond to anything. Let's just do business and do good
Let's
things.
do some business. Exactly.
Exactly. That is so great. I've been thinking a lot about who better to ask this question to than the big kahuna himself, because seriously, there's some people that I think are very apt to being able to answer certain questions. And you have a knack, you have a awareness of people, and you have a deep care for people and seeing them become very successful. And it comes out in everything that you do. And I was thinking about people that are listening that they're thinking, oh, well, I've been at this job for 20 years. Corey, come on, I'm kind of washed up, or I'm this or that. Like, we both know that people will make any excuse to not pursue their dreams. What would you say to those people?
Man, I would tell them there's hope. I believe it with everything that I am. And I mean everything, because listen, if you can breathe and you can think, you can make and achieve. My dad taught me from very early on when I was a young boy that like nothing's easy, right? I grew up very poor on a farm, 180 acres. I mean, it's not like, I had a silver spoon in my mouth. But what I had was a desire. Now, listen, if you don't have desire, I probably can't help you. But if you have desire and you are just stuck, well, that's the first step is the mind, right? You've got to start programming your mind. And this is hard. It's not easy. But I'm telling you, when you finally make the shift, and it's kind of like, when you go on vacation, Julie, like all of a sudden you can get everything. Like if you had a tremendous to-do, and women are the best at this, they can have a gazillion to-do list and they're going on vacation, like whoop, gets done.
It's done. Or all of a sudden, some of it's no longer important or relevant. It's like, right. Oh, I really don't have to run that errand.
Yeah. And so we make the things happen that we truly want to happen. And that's really how, like some people that, I wish I could quit smoking. And then one day they decide to just quit smoking and then they quit. And I think that's kind of how it is. We have to sometimes you're sitting on a nail and it's uncomfortable and we just sit there. It's till that thing gets so uncomfortable to you're like, I've got to change. And then we decide. And then from there, you really this is really the next step is how do you get confidence? I think you get confidence through education and knowledge. And that's how you start building your value in your mind and your belief in your mind. And then you learn to put fortresses and walls so people can't attack you, because as soon as you start going into a different direction, I call it the crab theory is, if you put a crab in a bucket, he gets out. You put two crabs in a bucket, they stay in. And so because they're the crabs just pulling and reaching and pulling the other person down. And unfortunately, this is usually like your friends and family.
So
Ask me
true.
how I know.
Exactly.
Mama Lucy, Shelly's mom, didn't think that I was the right catch. Man, she was not very in the beginning very happy with Corey, you know, and it was really struggle. It was a struggle on my wife and I's marriage because my wife had an unyielding, undying belief in me. I don't know how, but I'm telling you, the one thing my spouse did for me that was truly the best thing in the world is she gave me belief. And really when I would make mistakes and screw things up, this is when her superpower really showed, is because instead of criticizing me and belittling me, she came in, she met me with her words of praise and songs of hope, and really just kind of put new armor on me, got me all mended up. And then she'd kick me out the door and say, go get them.
That is true love right there. I'll put you back together and then I say, you can do it.
That's it. And so it made me be not afraid of failure because I didn't have to worry about at home failing, but in front of the parents, right? See, that's Shelly had to fight those battles. And honestly, her mom, you know, at one point in time got really mad and was living with us and decided to move back home, right? She was our daycare. And just because she didn't understand what Corey was doing and Shelly was defending me, and she's like, you can't, you know, and so that stuff's real, right?
It's super real.
People will try to bring you down as much as you can. And so to answer you that question, it's a long answer. It's got to be the deepest down desire of your heart, and then you've got to protect it, and you only show the right people, and then you tell yourself and look at it daily that you are that person, that you will have that vision, and you've got to just commit to it.
You really have to, and you know this firsthand, because I just think about the story of, you know, when you're like, I'm going to be a professional baseball player, and you finally get the courage to, you know, like speak this truth to your class, you know, as a you know, child, and you know, just to be ridiculed and mocked by your teacher, no less.
God,
Like,
I love
oh
that
my
you read my book. I love it that you read my book. This is so awesome.
No, I love it.
Gets a copy of the book, but not everybody reads it.
I was like, I can't wait to read this.
That's another great story of, and this is it actually, I can't make this stuff up.
You can't. And your cabana story.
So to tell that story, I'm in 7th grade, and you know, the teacher asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And like, this was the moment, man. Like, I was ready to come out. This is something I knew what I wanted to be. I wanted to be that professional baseball player, but I never publicly told anybody. And at that moment, I was like, today's the day, right? And I raised my hand, you know, real kind of reluctantly at first, right? But finally I put it way
Heart
up.
pounding.
And I get picked, and I'm like, okay, this is it. And so I walk boldly to the front of the classroom, and I turn around and I strongly proclaim that I want to be a professional baseball player. And I'm telling you, as soon as I say those words, my teacher looks me right in the eyes. He goes, based upon the odds, that will never happen. And all the kids started laughing. And man, you see this real proud young kid trying to, like, so super excited to share. My shoulders go down, my head, and I start to slump. And I was like, what do you mean? You know, do they not believe me? Why do they believe him? You know, wait, what about me? And I have this anxiety and this fear, and it's like, and depression, and like all of a sudden it's like, and then I as I'm walking back to the desk, like doubt came rushing in, and I was like, man, for the very first time, I thought that maybe I wasn't good enough. And seeing me penetrated, like, and that scar lasted for a while. It took me a little while to get over that, because that was a very public humiliation to me.
Well, and that's the first instance probably in your life of, I've held this, I've nurtured this, I've wanted this, and now I'm sharing this, and to have it smacked down.
And I showed it to somebody, and they just poo-pooed on it.
Oh my
Sounds a lot like life, doesn't it?
It is. It's so, you know, making that comeback. And there comes these points even for people on their, you know, on their real estate journey, as you said, because it is a journey where that doubt can come in, or where have you faced that on your investment journey, where
Well,
you've held this and
mhm.
now something comes to challenge you, or
Oh gosh, this seems like every deal's that way, right? Like every deal you'll ever do is like there's always like, oh God, here's this. Like we had a deal where we were in contract and it was like 80% or 89% occupancy, and by the time we closed at 75. Like, and what do you do?
wow.
Right?
Right.
And you're just like, and now you can't just get out of the deal because you're already hard. And like I mean, it's a very much a struggle sometimes in this real estate business. And sellers, I call it seller coma, like is real when you go under contract and and they let their staff know. People
It's
don't get,
true.
they're not excited about working anymore, right? And this was at a student housing facility property that we bought, and because they weren't really focused on it, you get one chance to like lease up for school. And so we had to carry that for like 6 months. It's not like we could fix it the month after. And so and that's where you start learning about your ability to solve problems, right? And really that's what we get paid to do as the head of, when you get out into the big boy club of multifamily apartments and you're going to create a team. Sometimes your real job as the orchestrator or the leader of your group is to solve those problems and provide solutions and scenarios, and then you get all your team to rally behind it. And that's really what I do now, is find those things that that's hard and difficult, and say, here's how we're going to do it, and everybody's like, all right, boom, that's what they want. They just want the directive, and then they all can then start rowing the boat in the right direction.
But it's so true about being problem solvers and being tenacious at that. And not to go back to it too much, but I mean, because I've read I haven't gone cover to cover in the book, but
You've
honestly,
not cried yet.
I haven't cried
It's
yet. It is
coming, Julie.
Oh gosh, I'm nervous.
You're gonna lose it. You're gonna lose it. I'm telling you, you're gonna absolutely lose it.
And I know the point that it's going to come to. It's with your son at the base, missing his game, isn't it?
When you read it, it's going to tear you, like, because it's going to tear you. I'm just going to tell you, I wrote that on the plane. Usually how I wrote this book is I wrote it when I was flying, traveling, right? That's just kind of like my downtime. And I remember writing that story and I'm freaking bawling as I'm writing it, right? And so that's why I know that you'll cry as well. If you have a heart and you're human, you cannot help but feel the pain. And that's what I think a good book does, is it, and I think this is just truly of who I am, and how a lot of people, like, most people go around wearing all kinds of masks, like Halloween's coming up.
Preach it, though.
And everybody has this mask on, and they put on when they're in front of an investor. They put a different mask on when they're with their family, and they put a different mask on when they're talking with professional people. And sometimes they forget what mask they have on.
This is so
sometimes
true.
Those masks are really ugly, right? And authentic. I don't mean saying it right. See, this is like, I barely made it out of high school.
Wait, let me see if I can. Authenticity. I have to say it slowly. There you go.
That is what's missing in really leadership and these platforms that we all have. A lot of people are trying to be someone that they're not. And I'm just going to put it out there, like a Grant Cardone. I can't stand that guy because I think he's fake as hell. But there's a lot of people that love Grant Cardone. That's great. There's a lot of people like the Kardashians, but would I ever want to be them? No. Right? So I'm going to stick with who I am, but I'm just going to be authentically me. And then that way I don't ever have to worry about who am I supposed to be. And I just wish that more and more people would just be that, because I think it's a lot easier and it's not as stressful.
Oh my gosh. I've done so many mindset episodes on, like, please get yourself out of the box that you put yourself in, or the box that other people want to put yourself in. Just be you. Like, there's nobody better to be than you. But it's also a very difficult thing for people, because that's that point of vulnerability where,
Yes.
Oh, I'm really me. And what if they really don't like me, or they don't? Come on. Yeah. What would you say to those people?
Man, what I've learned is that you'll never have to say you're sorry, and you'll never have to worry about not getting it right. Like if you're just you, and you don't have to make apologies for it. And sometimes it's good and bad and the ugly, right? Like it's okay that you're going to screw up. So I'll say in my podcast when I teach, a lot of times my teaching lessons are about the things that I screwed up. And it becomes across of like, listen, here's what happened, and here's how I made a mistake. And people learn from that. And so think about it from that point of view, is if you didn't, and how much more resilient are you by having to be able to share your mistakes? To me, that's powerful. And it's okay once you get there, just realize that you don't have to be perfect. And some people are going to be like, oh, well, he's not perfect, so I'm not going to invest with him. I will tell you though, when you can really go, so when I raise money and they're like, well, have you ever lost money? Yep. Let me tell you how, right? And let me tell you what I learned. And why I'm a so much better investor now because of that. And I can't even guarantee that I'm not going to lose it in the future, because I'm a realist. And the right people will attract to that and be like, you know what? I like this guy because I know he's going to be honest. And what I've learned is, like when I'm giving out investment advice, or when I'm talking about my deals, I always say there's not good news or bad news. It's just the news.
Right. Yep.
And that seems to help, because like I don't try to go too high or too low. I'm just like, it is what it is, guys.
Yep.
And that really makes it. Then again, it just lets you be very authentic.
It is so much easier once, and it took me years to figure out, like, just, as you know, you and your wife, Shelly, I just love you guys. I've listened to your podcast for a long time. And, there have been some podcasts where she's been on there too. And then you guys just crack me up and today when you were doing your Facebook Live with Shelly, I think you guys mentioned that she said something about, oh, we're both Mavericks. And it just made me laugh because I am the personality type Maverick as well. And, I don't know if all Mavericks have to go through this, but I had to go to that point where I'm like, you know what? And my husband gave me some seriously good advice for years. He's like, you can't please everybody, and not everybody's going to like you. Just be you. And I'm thinking, well, you married me and you've stuck through thick and thin with me. I'm like pretty sure that I should just be this person.
It is, man. And the one thing about being a Maverick too, so that our personality, we're very A dominant, right?
Right.
Actually even B, her B is stronger than her A, so we're a little bit different. She's more social butterfly, never met anybody that she didn't like, and then I can just work by myself, for long periods of time, whatever. But we sometimes when we to other people it looks like we're fighting, and we're just like, that's how we talk. That's how we get our points across. And the truth is, I go back to relationships. Like I've been happily married for like 18 years. Okay. And what I mean this is now I was married before previously. I call that my trial marriage. I learned everything I didn't want, but with Shelly, when we first said I do, we actually went to marriage counseling and we learned how to fight fair. I don't know, make this a marriage thing, but I think this is important because most of us are in relationships when we get into this real estate game, and it can make or break sometimes. Because as an entrepreneur, because like Shelly didn't do it in the beginning with me, she just now started doing it. For the longest time, it's just me being the risk, is what I like to call it. And Shelly was the able, steady able, right? Like she was like holding the good job and make sure that she paid the bills. Corey's out there trying to, dream and do the crazy stuff. And it takes a certain person to be able to do that. But really, at the end of the day, we just said, listen, we have this thing we call it the speaker listener technique. And when we need to like really communicate, we're like, hey, I need you to hear me. That's our kind of our keywords for that. And then this is how you make me feel. And so that one person, and when that person says, yeah, I hear you, right? So then what you have to do is you have to tell that person how you feel. And then the other person has to paraphrase it back to you. One of our best things we've ever done is like that, and our love journal. I don't know if we've ever talked about our love journal, but like we have a love journal. It's really cool.
Okay. I do remember hearing on your podcast how I think you wrote in a journal like every day and then you gave it to her. Is that right? Or do you
sort of? Yeah, so where do you put your love letters to your spouse? Okay. We have a love journal. We call it the love journal, right? And it's just a little book at class. And so when you feel like that thing, like, man, I really appreciate my wife today. Like, I'll go in there and I'll say, hey, honey, I'm watching you do this and I'm so proud, and yada, yada, yada. Like, here's where we're at in our life and the kids. And then you sign it and then you deliver it. So you kind of put it, this little journal, and we have one of our very first pictures that we've ever had when we first were a couple. We put it in that book, and then you kind of raise it up a little bit, and then you got to deliver it. And deliver it means they got to find it. It's always fun to find a surprise. And so, like, usually if I'm going to go out of town, I'll make sure I deliver it. I just put it in front of her sink, right? She finds it. And but then she gets to do it. Now, all that's great, but here's not why it's really important, or here's why it's important, is one day we're going to die. Okay, we're going to be gone. And I'm telling you, the only book that I want my kids and my families and my grandkids to read is that book. It's the stories of Shelly and I's love for years, and how we doted on each other, and the things that and the adversity that we had, and our tender moments together. That book is priceless, and that's what we want to leave on with our legacy. And our kids are not allowed to read it, but we've just found that it's a nice way to communicate, and it's a journal of those love stories for your life, and I think it's very valuable.
I love it. I think it's so beautiful. And, it even goes back to like taking what you hold so precious and dear to you. And we've kind of talked about that. And then you're nurturing it and feeding it. And sometimes you just keep that and continually incubate it in this really special way. And when it's an intimate relationship, it's just keep fueling that in that special way. I love it. You guys are so awesome.
Well, real estate takes it takes a lot out of you. So this is how you rekindle. Because, like, listen, I can hustle and grind with the best of them. I can do this thing all day long for days. And so I have to take breaks. And my wife reminds me of this a lot. To, like, come out and smell the roses, and so those are the little pattern interrupts that we have to make sure that we are spending those quality times, and that we take time to hang out and be friends and all that kind of stuff, because your marriage and your life and all the things you work for, if you want time and money, which is what apartments provide, you've got to build some other foundations to be able to enjoy it.
You do. And if you're not enjoying it, then then that doesn't work out very well at all for anybody at all. That's and it. Yeah, you're right. You can hustle and grind, because over, the podcast, I'm like, and then the book, I'm like, oh, there you are picking up all the rocks, out in the hot summer heat and filling the truck up in the, for the farm. And then I'm thinking about, just your investment journey was it Edward Jones or something like that you did prior to real estate?
Yeah, right? I've become a financial advisor with Edward Jones.
Going door to door, which, by the way, we have that in common, that I was like probably 10 years old. And I was going door to door. Yeah, no, I wanted the prize. Okay. I was selling gift wrap and all sorts of things, candles, from the school, for the school fundraiser. And I was like, I'm going to get those prizes.
Oh, that is so awesome.
But when you face that rejection early on, it tempers you, builds some resilience, when you have to. Yes,
it does. And you have to have it. I mean, like, face it, life is not easy, and it's a lot of adversity. But if you learn to take, again, those failures, I always knew that, with Edward Jones taught me all about money, by the way. One of the biggest gifts, and really, so I look at a lot of my friends that we started real estate at the same time. Like, even though I started my business in 2005, I really didn't go full time till 2009. And that's when I got fired from Edward Jones. Okay. And the reason I got fired is because, like, when everybody's 401ks turned into 201ks, it was heartbreaking, because I realized I had no control. Mm-hmm. See, I thought I had control, like, oh, I'm going to put you all these things. But the truth is I didn't. And I just felt horrible. And then if they wanted to move the money, I had to charge them another fee. And that was like adding injury to insult. And so my heart left the business. And as soon as my heart left, my sales did. And I got canned. but when I look at the gift that that company taught me, and this is kind of when I say it's the journey of copy your way to success. One of the things that Edward Jones taught me was money. It taught me about what people expect for it, what kind of return they're really looking for, how the markets work, stocks, bonds, mutual funds, insurance, annuities, all these financial instruments that most and listen, there's trillions of dollars out there. And not only that, they taught me how to network, how to go find out and hang out where money hangs out. That was a big help. And so when I went into real estate full time, my biggest problem was I didn't have any money. Like I had a little bit of money, but I didn't have like money to go buy single family homes, right? And I really didn't. Back in 2009, there were no lenders.
Right, there was no money for
there was no money. So I had to raise money on my own, and I would love to so when you're faced with problems, you sometimes just you got to figure it out. And for me, I was actually I was playing racquetball one day with my ex client. His name's Carl, and Carl didn't have any extra money. Okay, but Carl lived in a retirement community, and I was like, man, Carl's got to know somebody. So I share with Carl. I'm like, Carl, you see me doing, because I was actually wholesaling to wealthy investors, and they were making like $25,000 or $30,000 rips on these fix and flips, but I couldn't because I didn't have any money. So I was just making like a $3,000 fee, and I was like, dude, I really want to make the big money. And so I was sharing this with Carl, and I was like, Carl, these are my deals. Do you know anybody in that retirement community that could get you, wants to work their money a little harder? And he's like, well, let me see what I can do. Well, the next day, Carl calls me.
The next day.
The next day. And I was like, oh my God, Carl found somebody. He goes, Corey, do you still want to do that 12%? And I was like, well, yeah. And I was like, man, in the back of my mind, I was like, man, Carl found somebody. I was excited. He goes, Corey, you don't know this, but my home is totally paid for. I can borrow money at 2.3%, and you pay me 12, I can make a spread. How much money do you need? Now that's a loaded question.
Well, how much is available?
I'm just like, oh yeah. And it's like, okay, well, what do I say? Do I tell him just enough, or do I for the whole project? And I was in my mind, and I was like, oh, I got to say something. And finally I just went out and said, I go, Carl, I need $85,000. And there was a slight pause. And then it was like, yeah, okay, yeah. Where do you want me to send it? And just like that, man, I'm telling you, my jaw hit the ground, and I was like, because I never even thought that he was going to say yes or like any of that. So anyways, we found out how to get Carl's money. And what I equate that moment to, for me, was like going into the telephone booth as Clark Kent and spinning around that thing. And I was like, I raised private money.
Oh my gosh,
I became Superman.
I'm such a superhero nerd. So I'm like, oh, I love that. That is so fantastic.
And so the two things I learned from that is, number one, you never ask people for money. When you're new in this game, you just don't ask people for money. What you do is you ask, who do you know? See, I was asking Carl for help. I wasn't asking Carl for money. And what I did, so what I learned now is, if you have what we call a credibility kit, it's something that you would be able to tell your story of why you do apartments and why you find stuff. And the reason I want you to look at this, can you help me out, John, or Julie, and critically look at my thing here, because I think you may be able to refer me to some great people. And if you don't understand it, they won't. So can you poke some holes in my presentation? And what I just do, I just asked you to critically look at the thing. And I believe this, the right people, just like Carl, will always self-select. And that's how I've raised millions and millions of dollars, is I have a credibility kit. It really talks about what I do, like the sauce, the sizzle, how you find apartments, how you look for them, how do you, what kind of management team do you have, how do you sell them, and all your little whiz bang, all the little processes for that. It's not hard, not complicated, but it tells your story. And the right people will well, tell me more. How does it work? Well, fill out this accredited investor form, right? And then we can talk real numbers, right? But you can sell the sizzle, and the right people will always self-select. It's made me
And you
millions
have
of
to,
dollars.
you're like, it works, people. Come on. Well, and part of it also is being able to accept that it's not for everyone. And there are going to be the people that are still not ready for that
Yeah,
information. And it's like, to me, that's the most heartbreaking part, because I'm so
yeah,
sold out on multifamily investing. I know how powerful it is in somebody's portfolio. It's just a power play. And it's like, how can you not see this? I want it. I like,
here's
some
what I do
people
with those
just aren't
people.
ready.
So
What do you do?
here's what I do with those people. I know that no just means like KNOW. I need to know
Right.
more. That's it. They said no, but what they really meant to say is, Corey, I don't trust you yet. I feel like I need to know more. And so I'm like, that's no problem. There's never ever any pressure. I'm like, great. And then I will make a note, and then I'll put a task in Asana or for my team, and we'll follow up. If it was about that deal that we gave them, they said, nah, they didn't want it. I will then start sending them financials down the road. Like after we've been operating it, I said, hey, John or Julie, I know you didn't really want this deal. I just want to give you an update of how we're doing. Right. And
We've quadrupled the money in just
yeah,
a few
we've
months.
killed
I'm
it.
so
We've knocked it
sorry you
out of the
didn't
park. It's
subscribe.
been great. I'm so sorry you didn't get on this one, but and like, that's what you do. And sometimes they'll still say no, but a lot of times what they want to see and feel it. Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and they just need to know more, and that's okay. And so that's always how I've taken the rejection of, man, I don't want your deal. And honestly, like, we've learned that we don't offer the highest returns. Like, I'm known in this industry right now for, I raise cheap money, and there's a reason for it, because Edward Jones taught me that you don't have to give someone, you don't have to make them punch drunk on a return. You don't have to give them 20%. So we just give, like, if you were to ask a financial advisor, Julie, what the average return they should get for their clients, they're going to tell you 6 to 8, somewhere in there. Like, everybody that I know, that is the spot. 6 to 8 is the average of what they're trying to get you in the stock market. Now, if you'll understand how many trillions and trillions and trillions of dollars are in mutual funds, stocks, bonds, and all that other jazz, right? It's a lot of money. Wall Street firms, that's why they're always on every building. Banks, right? They're in
Right.
control of the money. And their name of the game is to keep the money in-house, is to not let it leave, which is why they'll never, like, if I ever had someone come into my office as a financial advisor and say, hey, I'm thinking about doing real estate, I'm like, ooh, that's risky, right? And the truth is, I can't even talk about real estate, because as a licensed a person, financial Series 7's license, you can't sell away. You can't even and offer a product that your company doesn't represent or sell. And we don't do real estate. So I just say it's risky. But we have a real estate investment trust, a REIT. See, that's what we try to move them to. But the average person is getting 6 to 8. So 12 is considered very speedy, risky in that world. 20% is ludicrous speed. Okay, for anybody that watches Star Wars back in the day, when there was actually, I'm trying to think of the name of that stupid show, but anyways, ludicrous speed. Right? It's crazy, and they don't want to invest because they think it's too risky if you give a too high of return. So what we've learned to do is we call it a 6 and 6. This is the way we do our syndications, where we give a 6% pref and we pay it quarterly. And what I've learned to do is sell it like I sold financial instruments like bonds. And
Right.
so the average, I say, so most people, when they got a bunch of retirement money, Julie, is the financial advisor would tell them, hey, if you can live off of 3% of your money as income, that's what you need to budget for. So think about that for a minute. I just have $1 million in my account. 3% is like 30 grand. That doesn't sound too exciting. Okay.
Not at all. I'm not
People are
going to
like,
Hawaii living what I want, doing what I want.
right. And Julie, they're just like, but that's the reality. That's where a lot of people are at. And then and then the real question, the real fear is then they know they're going to have to dip into their principal. And so then that's the real question is, am I going to run out of money? And that's what's playing in their head as they get into retirement, because they've saved some money and now they got to make a paycheck, and they're like 3%. So if we go and offer them 6%, and we say that we're actually going to send them a check, like a real money, they can go cash quarterly. We make quarterly payments. Now, some people make monthly. We like doing it quarterly.
Forget monthly.
Yeah, that's too much work, right? So I don't make it easy on Corey. So, but quarterly, that's a quarterly check. And most people that are in retirement can budget off of quarterly checks. And if it's 6%, now instead of 30 grand, it's 60. Well, 60 grand sounds not bad. Like I can feel that and because they got Social Security, some other things, that seems to make sense in most people's minds. And it's a paycheck. And then, but then you get to say, but wait, there's more. Okay. Eventually we're going to operate this property. We're going to fix all the broken stuff, and we're going to keep raising. The one thing about tenants is they expect rent to go up. And guess what, Julie? We never disappoint them.
Why would you disappoint the residents?
Right?
Give them what they want.
We're going to raise the rents. Okay. Even if it's a 3% like cost of living increase, we're always going to raise the rents each and every year. That's what we do in the apartment business. When we do that, we actually increase the value of the property. When we sell it, there's going to be some profit on the back end. And so when we get that sell, we're going to give you an additional 6% annualized for as many years as you've been in the deal with us. So it's a total return of 12%. And see, that's a story that like retired people can understand. I've been on lots. I was just on one where like they're talking about an IRR and return and multiplier and all these little things. And people, even my wife was like, what the hell did he just say? Right? What does that mean? And see, most people don't understand it. But now there's the smart money. Here's what I want to say is I love dumb money, but not dumb people. Okay. I get dumb money from smart people, and dumb money is anything that's in the stock market. If I go out and attract and find and fish in the ponds where those IRAs live, right, from the people that are in the stock market, I can show them my investment with apartments, and I get to win 95% of the time, I feel like. And that's a win-win. And that's really how you raise capital in this business at a low cost. And then you, as the syndicator, Julie, get to make a big chunk at the end. So I'm in this business for Corey. Okay, the Kahuna, or my family. My goal is I owe it to my investors to give them a solid return, a great return. But I'm not trying to make them punch drunk. Okay? I'm trying to give them a solid return that they can depend on and count on. And then my spoils is if I do a really good job, Corey gets to make a really good chunk of money too. And then we also get to improve the property. So those are win-win-wins. And I've just learned to structure it so I get to win more than what I would say the average syndicator or teacher teaches, because most people are trying to get a little piece, and I'm trying to like do fewer deals and make a lot more.
Right.
Because I'm lazy.
You're like, because I want to be on the beach. I want to be drinking and enjoying the sunset.
I think about Bruce often. I want time and money. And by the way, I've got 2 more years left of my goal to buy that house. And it was supposed to happen this year, but COVID happened. And so I was
what's COVID? What?
Yeah, right. I know. So COVID made it to where I'm not selling one of my properties. I'm going to wait till next year. But when I sell this property, let's just say daddy's going to make some money. And mom and daddy, me and Michelle are and then we're gonna really look at maybe either buying Bruce's house or a house like Bruce's in Kauai. And because how can you be the Big Kahuna if you don't have a house in Hawaii?
Yeah, you got to have your place. I agree.
And so,
Corey,
yep, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, and I'll finish with this. What motivates me now is not what motivated me in the beginning. In the beginning, it was like I just need to like pay my bills. Okay, I think a lot of your listeners, my listeners too, is like, how do I just pay my bills?
Yep.
Then you transfer to how do I make some money? And finally you make enough money where now money's not the object. And so now I have a new thing. I call it supplier fun. And my job is I want to be the supplier of fun to my friends and my family. I want to give them experiences. So for example, I just took last November, I took all my neighbors, we took them to Hawaii. And they bought their plane ticket, but I bought for everything else. I paid for all our places we stayed, all our excursions, all our stuff. And that was fun. That was the supplier of fun.
When you mentioned that recently at Brian Briscoe's Gaithersburg meetup, and you or was it his is one of the events that he hosted, and after that event, he's like, I am now going. My new goal is I'm going to be the supplier of fun. So.
It's a great saying because it really emulates. In my mind of who I really wanted to be. I never wanted to be the showboat, the Grant Cardone, say, look at my jet and look at my, who cares, man? But would I rather just speak softly and when someone says, hey, let's go to Hawaii, I'm like, that's a great idea. And like, listen, I just booked it. And so awesome, let's go out and have fun.
Yeah.
I want to be that guy.
Yeah.
That's way more rewarding.
And that's a deeper, it kind of matches you also, because I mean, like, you're a very relationship driven person. I'm just going out on the cuff and saying that, like you have to, you care about people and you're like, oh, let me invest. So,
it's just who I am, right? And so like if you just stay true to who you are, like all those things just kind of fall in line. And I'm not saying my way is the perfect way. I know it's not, but it is a way. And that's how I've chosen to live my life is to build it with integrity and honesty and enjoy the journey.
And it is a journey, and you do have to enjoy it. I call it heartbeats. I'll just drop that in there. Is that you only have so many heartbeats, and so like make every single heartbeat count. Like, what's the point in wasting it? So unfortunately, my dad literally dropped dead from a heart attack. Like healthy, totally great, fine, gone. And that was a very transformational moment in my life for the better. I leveraged it. He was my favorite human being outside of my husband. It could have destroyed me. And I chose to say, you know what, the pain is going to be there. I'm going to use that for something really great. But so heartbeats, because he had a heart attack, is really something that became very real to me. It's like, oh, wow, you don't know. So make those heartbeats count.
Wow, that's powerful.
It really is. So see, it's just like you. I think you do the same thing where you take something and you say, okay, this could be really bad if I let it, but I'm going to use this for something so good. It's going to be awesome.
Amen.
Yeah. Corey, I am so grateful to share space with you. I enjoy your podcast, so I'm going to just drop that to everybody listening right now. Go check out Corey's podcast. It's so much fun. And one of the things that I loved about your podcast, and I found it after I'd kind of been to the more academic podcasts, if you will, and then I found your podcast on my journey, and I'm like, oh, he's real, and you laugh, and it's a conversation. And actually your podcast influenced even the format of how I like to run my podcast, because I just want people to feel at home and just, this is real. It's just a real conversation. So.
Oh man, thank you so much. I didn't know I had that much influence. And
you did.
Oh man, that really just makes, that makes my heart just get all excited. And because I truly believe this whole thing, the way I just wanted to leave enough crumbs and like clues that people could look and say, wow, that's the path. Right. And they can still find their own way on it. But like, as long as there's enough, like, okay, that's where he's going. That was my only goal of wanting to become a teacher. But the other part of that is becoming a teacher, you become a better student. I've learned more on this journey because I taught what I knew. And so there's this image I saw a long time ago. And if I could get someone to paint it, I would. But it was a picture of Jesus on a boat, and he's reaching down, and there's a guy that's in the water and he's drowning, and he's got one hand, he's holding on to Jesus' hand, but his other hand is down and he's reaching for another guy that's farther than him. And so I believe that's the epitome of who we should be. on one hand, you're reaching and you're striving, you have mentors, you have someone that's helping you pull you up. On the other hand, you've got people that are below you that need your knowledge, need your help, that you should be helping. And so I do both because it gives me a lot of joy and a lot of peace. And honestly, it's just who I am. And I think that's who you are as an educator. So condolence to you.
That is great. And I have heard you even describe that before. And I give you credit actually. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you know what I heard and blah, 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 because it is true. And unfortunately it's lost somewhere. It's going to make a comeback. If mustaches can make a comeback, gosh darn it, so can this. Right. But that concept of, you don't have to be jealous or competitive with the people that are ahead of you. And you don't have to, snub the people that are still rising up. You get to be that bridge. And
amen.
I love it. Goodness, Corey. Okay, guys, you have to go check out Everything Kahuna. Even some swag. Did you notice? I was like, oh, you're over there in shorts and your nice aloha shirt, and I'm here in jeans and this great hoodie that you sent.
Yeah, rents due.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, rents due. We got a kick out of that. Anyhow, best places for listeners to connect up with you.
The podcast, Multifamily Legacy Podcast, and then you can go to my website. Kahuna Wealth Builders is where we have a bunch of free stuff, and you can get our Quick Start Workshop series for free. And but yeah, those are the best two places.
All right, so everyone, make sure you go to those places and check out Corey, see what's going on. And I always tell people, I don't know who is going to resonate with who. So if you're listening to this and you're like, whoa, Corey sounds awesome, and I want to get involved in this. Corey has lots of educational programs available to help you on your journey, but also there are investment opportunities. And so always go and check out what offerings people have. If there's somebody that you feel like, wow, this might be the right person that I can trust and I want to go check out. So
thank you so much, Julie.
Yeah, have a great afternoon or evening, whatever time it is where you are in Arizona right now. Thanks, Corey.
Rock and roll.
And for everybody out there, go find your freedom.
Thanks so much for joining me for another episode of Ask Me How I Know. This episode was brought to you by 3 Keys Investments. They are dedicated to helping people like you, you, my awesome listeners, develop passive income and legacy wealth through multifamily investing. Feel free to check out their website, 3keysinvestments.com, to see if there's an offering that will help your portfolio grow and meet all of your needs. If you haven't already rated, reviewed, subscribed, liked, all of those bells and whistles, I would be absolutely honored if you would do that for Ask Me How I Know. Thanks again, and go make it a great day.